are back for another Dualistic Unity Real with Jackie and Amanda. Today, I am lightning. I would make a sound, but that would be thunder. Lightning is silence, which I really need to work on. And now.
Oh my gosh. I am an ominous dark cloud today. That's just the vibe. We had a rushed morning. I thought the live was at 1. It was at 12:30, so I had to like shower really quick. Like, this is gonna be real. And I'm only saying this because I feel like nobody's gonna be in here, but like, you ever had like, because I was just rushing to yoga this morning and then rushing home and then like rushing to get showered and ready, and I had to shit. And and what do you do in that situation? I was like, fuck, like I don't think I can hold it.
You gotta prioritize the shit.
I was like, all right, we gotta just try. And anywho, I'm just gonna stop that. The yeah. Off there. Y'all don't need to know the intricacies
of my bowel movements. It's a little too personal. Oh my God, no, but I love how this conversation includes everything that could be considered serious, like empathy and awareness and consciousness and self introspection and farts and duck penises and shits and bowel movements. It is everything, because the conversation is ongoing, and it does include everything, because the conversation is still a conversation regardless of the topic. And but today has been a whirlwind of a day for me as well. So I love it. I am right there with you, Jackie. And today also marks the occasion. Andrew and Ray just went live for the last episode of season 5 before we kick everything off for season 6, where we are joining the party. And then we can go live for some of our episodes. But for now, we have to wait. We have to record them and then release them later, because we can't start going live for season 6 before season 6 starts. You know, unfortunately. But I do look forward to the first time that we can go live for an episode versus one of our DU Real shows.
That will be exciting. I know, it's wild that this is all happening now, and we've already done like we've recorded 2 full episodes, and this is our 3rd reel. Easy money. And you know, I realized last night, this is something that I wanted to bring up today. I realized last night that I'm just tired of thinking about myself. Like, I've been having this whole story that I'm like in a rut, or that I'm going through something right now, or like I have a lot on my plate, whatever. But I realized that that strain only comes when I decide I want to think about it. And I'm just tired of thinking about Jackie. Like, honestly, I wish I could just like take this off and put it down somewhere and be part of everything for a second. But that's always the case. I'm just always stuck with this, but at least it's the one thing I have influence over. And my thoughts can really give it to me sometimes. And that's the case with everybody. But it can be difficult to see the beauty in the negative aspects of life sometimes, or the unpleasant aspects of life. And there are moments that I catch myself being like, what is even the point of this happening? Like, why do I have to be self-aware? I wish I just wasn't self-aware and was like an animal without the ability to think about myself. But also, I think the human ability to like reflect on ourselves, and it is a superpower in some senses, because we can look at what we did in the past and like consciously choose smarter decisions or more informed decisions in the future, so that it's useful. But sometimes it turns against you, and I'm like, I wish I could just step out of this echo chamber of my own thoughts from time to time. But then there's no point in doing that. And something else I've like been trying to practice is when I'm feeling like aggressive towards myself. Like just being like, you belong to that feeling, or like just being like, yeah, like that's there and it's okay that it's there. I don't need to like expel a demon from me. I just need to like pull it in actually, and I need to look at it and be empathetic towards it, because my relationship with myself is the relationship I have with the world, and I think both of those are opening up a lot more the more I question where the boundaries are, because there is no boundary. So anyway.
No, I resonate, or I definitely remember that feeling of wanting to stop thinking about the character, to stop thinking about Jackie, Amanda. It's like it's exhausting. What's hilarious is that it doesn't have to be exhausting, you know, because it's exhausting because I take it so seriously, because I hold on to it. You know, the character Amanda feels so heavy because I hold on to the character like that's all I am. And I do get swept up in that feeling of like, it's Amanda, you know, we got to be productive. And, you know, Amanda is, we've got to utilize her skills and tools. And I'm just like, and Amanda can just chill. Amanda can just chill the fuck out. And I love the beginning of our episode where when I talked about like, oh, I'm lightning and I want to make a sound, but that would be thunder. And but you know, that's my struggles. I don't. Silence and non-movement is not a choice I make often. And so I am lightning that really wants to be thunder, because thunder makes noise and lightning is just for show. And I'm like, oh my goodness. But it's that there are moments where saying nothing speaks volumes, and in the same way that a picture can speak 1,000 words. So as much as I thought that the way to show power and strength was to be either the loudest person in the room or to silence others, not seeing the value and the impact of silence, and not valuing the non-activity. And so it's just it's a humbling experience, because I'm so full of myself and I'm just like, I've got this figured out, we know what's up. And then something will happen, I'm like, you know, we didn't see that coming. We really got to make better plans. It's like, no, Amanda, you don't have to make better plans. Is that you don't need to hold on to the plan like it has to be right, like it has to work, like it has to go in a certain way. And it's interesting because I've been thinking about like control, and like asking myself, like, has there ever been an instance where I ever wanted to control something that I wasn't scared of? And I couldn't come up with any examples. Like when I'm happy, there isn't a desire to control something. When I feel loved, there's not a desire really to control something. But when I felt scared, I have wanted to control. And so I couldn't think of it. And I wonder, Jackie, can you think of any example where you've ever wanted to control something that you weren't afraid of?
I don't think so. Like, fear is like our alarm system in our body that we need to do something. So, and we're only doing that to protect ourselves. And it can be from physical safety, which I think is a good thing that we have, so that we can continue to live and experience. But, you know, if you die, you die. Anywho, I think it's because we've extended our identity and our sense of self into our ego, or like this construct of who we are, the idea of ourselves. And in like this modern world, it encompasses your career, like social media. Like there's just so much like valuing and judging and like systems going on that we feel like we need to be aware of and attend to. Like we feel like we have to have all of our bases covered all the time. And so we live in fear a lot of the time. And that's something that I realized too over the weekend when I was sick, is that it's hard to like be still when you know there's a million things that you could be doing, but that's always going to be the case. Like that's always, you always could potentially have a million things to do, but it's a choice in every moment to I don't know, second guess yourself and fall into fear and basically spin your wheels because that's what you're used to doing rather than knowing it getting you anywhere. So you can always just relax into the uncertainty and be like, yeah, that could happen, I guess, but anything could happen. And what am I going to do about it? You know, especially I was sick in bed and like, I'm like, I need, like, right now, I need to chill. But my brain was thinking, like, I even had the thought, like, when I was just like going off into my world of thoughts, as I sometimes do, I was like, I should go for a run. And I was like, bitch, you're sick. Like, what are you talking about? You can't breathe. Why would you go for a run? And it's so strange because, like, I feel like there's an urgency because I'm afraid of what? Of what? Of what I'm gonna think about Jackie or what? I don't know. That's literally it. I'm gonna think about Jackie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Oh my God, you cracked me the fuck up, Jackie. That was so funny. Bitch, you're sick. That's exactly how I talk to myself. I love it. Somebody's got to keep Amanda in line. She's out of control sometimes. You know, she's out of control. Oh my God. And it's true. Like we judge ourselves from like not being productive and not being, it's like you're sick. Well, heal faster. Like, oh, sure. I order, receive, heal faster. Let me just do that. Fucking I dream a genie. If I can blink my eyes and we're healed. Like my goodness, man. But it's because it's like I love the analogy that I heard in one of our Dualistic Unity Patreon calls, which there will be a roundtable today at 6 p.m. Eastern time. And in one of our group calls, someone gave the analogy of beating yourself up as that being your favorite meal at a restaurant. It's what you always order. It's like a standing order. You go to this restaurant that's called life, and on the menu is kick the shit out of myself. And you just keep ordering that, and that becomes your favorite order, but it doesn't have to be. And it's almost out of a automatic habit that you think to beat yourself up. And it's so ingrained that I don't even notice it when I do it sometimes. Like it's like I'll feel the sting, but I won't notice my hand like winding up to smack the shit out of me, and then I'm like, damn, that hurt. And I was like, you know, the incoming hand could have gave me like, if I was paying attention, I would have saw the hand going, hey, wait a minute, we don't have to do that. You know, because the only thing that I want when I want to control myself, it's because I'm scared that I'm not enough. I'm scared that I don't measure up for someone else. I'm scared that I'm not good enough for a job. I'm not good enough for a partner. I'm not good enough for a friendship. It could literally be something so simple like that. And so I think the best way to motivate myself to become good enough is to belittle myself. That makes a lot of sense. And it doesn't of course, this plan doesn't make sense. It's because it's made out of fear. Like you're not making this plan after collecting information. So I love that you and I, we love research and we love learning. And when you research, you tend to you make insights from what you're gathering. And when I think about the plans that I make out of fear, those plans are never made from collected research that I analyze and I understand and I evaluate. My plans of fear are always knee-jerk reactions. Oh, I'm not good enough, so I need to work out harder so that my body looks better and then I can be more attractive. Not thinking, oh, if my body was well nourished and we exercise for strength, it will look amazing because it's healthy. So it doesn't have to look amazing aesthetically just to fit an aesthetic model. Happiness looks fantastic. Health looks fantastic. So you will still get that vain or superficial benefit by not pursuing it, because anytime that I pursued that, I was always malnourished. I was always starving myself. I was always working myself too hard and trying to cut calories, because the end goal was more important than the process of living a healthy life. So anytime I had a plan based on fear, was always, you know, you get what you pay for. When you pay for a plan with fear, it's shit.
Yeah, no, that's a good analogy. Well, not even an analogy, but it's interesting how things like eating disorders or things like that, because I've struggled with things like that in the past. It aligns, and often they come out of situations where you feel like you don't have control in your life, or you want to be able to control something. And so sometimes that manifests with controlling what you eat and like trying to fit a certain image of who you think you should be for everybody else. Like, I sometimes think, like, if I was alone on the planet, what would I fucking think about? I wonder, like, if you isolated me from everybody, probably nothing, because, you know, we need collaboration and we need, I don't know, I think physically I wouldn't be able to sustain myself forever as just out in the wilderness like a feral child or something. But anyways, we were talking about fear, and yeah, like it's crazy how we can internalize that, and like then yeah, I've struggled with that as well. And like that was a big part of my journey as well, with exercise. And I feel like I've come from a point of like uber control and like counting calories and being vegan and lifting weights in the gym 6 days a week to eating whatever I want. Now I eat meat and cheese and eggs and all the things again. Crucify me. I do my best to make sure that they I do my best to make sure that they're sustainably sourced. And also doing yoga has very much so healed my relationship with control in my body, just like allowing shit to just be what it is and not trying to fit myself or my life into this box. So I'm like, I feel like I'm trying to jam myself in, and it's like, it's hurting. It hurts because you're saying some parts of you aren't good and some parts of you are good. And that translates into what we like show the world, the parts of our personality that we emphasize versus the parts of us that we shove down and wish weren't there and point at everyone else and point it out in them. It's like the seeds of division comes from within, and it's crazy that we do that to ourselves. And a lot of the times when I'm tripping, I'm like, why am I ever mean to myself? And I don't understand it. It's because I don't feel those same thoughts in the moment. Like the default mode network is not feeding me all the thoughts that I've been thinking my entire life, like 80% of which are automatic. Like when that's gone, you can really see shit for what it is. But I think most of the time we are just clouded, like an ominous dark cloud all the time. Full circle moment there.
And as lightning, I must be silent. No, I was kidding. But it's no, but You're absolutely, you make an excellent point about, when you're tripping on shrooms and you look at the way that you speak or think about your character, your ship on this sea of uncertainty. it's it's harsh. You would never be friends with someone knowingly be their friend if they ever treated you this way. And we only allow ourselves to do that because we saw somebody in my imagination, or at least in my opinion, whichever one. I think that we only picked that up because somebody that we respected did that. And I want to be that person, because that person, they must be doing it right. They've been here long enough. So I think of my parents, and as much as school reinforces that, I got my first dose of it at home. The way that my parents were super critical of themselves, and their parents were super critical, and I was getting feedback that I was not meeting expectations from my grandparents, from my parents. And then I went to school, and it felt like such an easy test to pass at school, because it was very black and white. It was memorize this, and at any point be ready to regurgitate what you memorized this week, this month, this year. If you could be stopped in the middle of a hallway, somebody could ask you a question, and you could just blurt out what you were required to memorize in this week's lesson plan, golden. They will almost never raised any red flags at school if you could just memorize and regurgitate on command. And so that felt like, oh fuck, I know this environment. This is great. This is great. At home, it's like anything could set someone off at home. My dad was very strict. He would get upset if there was one spoon in the sink when he came home from work. Like, he wanted everything to be spotless. And that was how he was raised. And so his mother valued cleanliness over connection. And so he values cleanliness over connection. What's happening in my house when I'm growing up, I'm seeing that cleanliness is more important than connecting with my family members. So as long as I can keep my room clean, we can avoid a lash out. But even then, at home, they could have a bad day at work, come home and take it out on you. At school, I didn't have that environment where, I'm sure the teachers took something out on us, but at least it wasn't me, because I was the stuck up. I was the brown noser. I was the teacher's pet, because I liked being in an environment where I kind of knew it was more black and white than gray. And anytime that it was gray, I usually didn't experience gray, because I kept myself in a very black and white mindset. So I almost never encountered gray areas in school, unless we're talking about dealing with other kids. That was all gray. Like the rules with kids change. All of a sudden, we all we care about is running fast to the tree. This week, we don't care about trees anymore. Now we care about riding on a bike fast. I'm like, oh shit, the rules changed. Okay, all right. I don't know if I know how to ride. So like with kids, it felt like the rules were constantly changing. But at least in the classroom environment, it felt so black and white that was comforting. And I look back now and I'm like, damn, I just maximized the trauma. Like, I had like just because you maximize the trauma, man, it does not mean that you were not scarred. Like, it's still a fucked up environment, even though you didn't get fucked up as much as everybody else. Like, that still was not great. That was not great. It's just madness. It's pure.
It's so fucking crazy. Like, it comes at us from all angles. So, like, we come out of the world, we come into the world, out of the world, from within the world, and we're this precious little bit that doesn't see other, that doesn't compare, that is just curious, is just like, what the fuck is going on? Also, that is terrifying. So I don't know if I would want to necessarily go back to that, but like, it's crazy when you see that in everybody else, like their inner child, I guess. And how, like, our personalities literally manifest based on like the pain that we went through as a child. Honestly, like, oh my gosh, I resonated so much with what you were saying about school. Like, I was such a teacher's pet. Like, I was like at the front of the classroom. I always wanted to have like the perfect grades. I put so much pressure on myself. I spent so much time doing homework. and also like doing soccer and like trying to excel at that and feeling like I was not living up to some standard there. And then also like with everything in my life. The school, yeah, it's like school, I felt the validation, but I also felt the judgment really, really hard. And I feel like I really internalized the judgment and also like getting used to just regurgitating things rather than thinking through them and really like thinking about what I think or how I feel. And sometimes it's hard for me even to like get in touch with what I actually think or feel about something because I have so many layers of like conditioning and fear on top of that. That's like, no, you should think this way. But like sometimes I can't even tell if I do think differently than that because it's just so distorted. But there are other times where it's crystal clear and I just know. And so that's interesting how I can like fool myself, but also I shouldn't assume that any one answer is a right answer, even if a decision I make is clouded and distorted and I'm hard on myself or like I judge myself. I shouldn't automatically say that that's like a bad thing and that it shouldn't happen at the same time because it's what's happening. And I think there is like a self-refining process happening just in general. I feel like that's what all life is a self-refining process. And like I think all of our wisdom comes from like the painful shit that we go through in life. And so like you need to appreciate these darker parts of yourself, or not appreciate, just accept, because it informs everything else. And also, I don't know, light and dark are equally as important. Just in general, I think everything in existence in the universe comes back to balance. Everything has to be balanced. But I do think we can stop being so extremely brutal on ourselves and others. And so like that's what we're trying to be an example of here with Dualistic Unity is opening up these parts of ourselves that we feel like we've suppressed for so long or hid, like we hid our faces for so long, or like we didn't, the fear of being seen, I think. And that's something that we all struggle with because we feel like we have like a mask or like a persona that everybody sees and we like want to we just want people to see that. And there's parts of ourselves that we hide underneath and we don't show. And yeah, I think the whole spirit of Dualistic Unity is like looking back within yourself and accepting all of it and learning to just be at peace with whatever the fuck is going on in the moment. Because the more we try and fight our experiences or who we are, that is the cause of suffering. 100%. Like it's just resistance. And it doesn't mean you always have to be positive. You can just be like, okay, I guess that's there. And talking about it helps, I think. Like being able to talk about your shit openly even and, you know, see the benefit that it has, like with people resonating with you or even not, just to like get it off your chest. It feels good. So, yeah, I think that's the best we can do.
Yeah, and I love that you brought up how like light and dark and things being, you know, hard versus easy, and it reminded me of a a point that I don't know if it was Ray or Andrew who made it in one of the past episodes where they talked about that there are no opposites, that everything is a spectrum, right? Because you couldn't have light without darkness because it's only light because it's brighter than the darkness, and in the same way that something isn't is that something goes from being like hard to being like immediately easy. It's that it's gradual, it's a spectrum, and so things gradually get easier the more familiar you get with them. And I do agree with that still, that there are no opposites. Everything is a spectrum, everything is on varying degrees, because things aren't so, because when I think of opposites, I think of like black and white. It's a black and white description of life. It's either light or it's dark. And it's like, is it, or is it just varying degrees? Like everything is just a varying degree, including our emotions, including our perceptions, including how things feel. It's just, everything is just moving, varying. It's, oh, I do not hear a leaf blower in the back. I do not. I do not. But I am also half deaf, so I'm probably the worst person to ask about a hearing issue. Do you hear that? Sorry, can you repeat the question? What was that? Oh my God. But ODC, you know what ODC? Yeah, you know me. Oh my God, I'm sorry. Bringing it back, bringing it back. That is not the original lyrics of the song, but we remix it in DQ, you know. But yeah, no, I definitely feel that it's just a spectrum. And all that suffering comes from our perception that something is not where it should be. Something or someone isn't the way it's supposed to be. And it's like, that is a pure fucking opinion. There is, I don't know. And that's the thing that that's how I bring myself back, is regardless of my opinion, regardless of how I feel about that opinion or about the situation I'm in, I just don't know. Like, there's no way that I could say with absolute certainty that I know something, that oh, hey-oh. I love that, like, so much has gone wrong in our, like, very few live episodes, and our very few, like, last time it was, like, audio issues. And we're just laughing through it, because who says you're not supposed to have an audio issue? Who says you're not supposed to have a leaf blower in the background every now and again? Who says you're not changing rooms in the middle of a live episode? Like, things are happening and we're happening with it. It is a dance, and it doesn't have, the choreography is never wrong, because we're coming up with the choreography as we take each step.
Beautifully said. Yeah. We're as Roy said in the chat, like, we're painting this as we go. Like, I think the difference is we try and live life from the opposite perspective, where we feel like we have to think about everything first before we do it. And that's just coming back to this false sense of control. Like, we can ever completely control our reality by thinking about everything, but we can't. That's our own personal hell, actually. But yeah, we're rolling with it. Shit fucking happens. Sometimes there's leaf blowers. Sometimes you're in a bad mood. Sometimes you don't have time to shit before the episode, and that's just something that you have to go through. And either you could go through it and complain about it the entire time and kick yourself and, like, be like, curses! Fucking, the universe is against me. It's my negative karma. Like, we'd find so many excuses to resist, and we could either do that, or we could just go through it and deal with it, because you're gonna have to deal with it anyway. The thinking doesn't actually get rid of any of the uncertainty, any of the fear, or any of the amount that you have to deal with the present moment. Like, you still have to deal with the present moment, and you can choose to distract yourself with thought. And we do that most of the time just because it's habitual. Like, it's not adaptageous. We think it is, but it's not. Like, thinking doesn't get you anywhere. And yeah, it's interesting. Like, I wish I could turn it off sometimes.
Turning it off, though, would make it impossible to connect with anyone ever again, though. You know, the fact that we still go through the shit is is really a good thing. You know, every time somebody tells me, "Oh, Amanda, I didn't know that you had any insecurities. Oh, I thought you were fine. I didn't know that you felt anxious or you seem to handle things a lot better than I do." I was like, "That's rich," because in my opinion, I could do a lot better. So as much as someone may think that like we don't go through it, we do, and I'm glad that we do, because it's not that it ever has to stop, it's that I'm no longer surprised when it happens. And I can and I will rephrase that. I am less surprised when it happens. Before, it was like, the audacity of the universe. How dare you get in my plans? How dare you get in my way? Do you not know that I spent 500 hours coming up with this plan? This is the best plan of my life. And here you are, life, getting in my way. How dare you? How I can't even the audacity of this universe sometimes. You know, like I was so surprised when something would go wrong, and now I am less surprised when something doesn't go the way that I assumed, because I acknowledge that my plans are all based on assumptions of the future. They're all based on assumptions on me understanding this now. And because I assume I understand the present to a certain degree, with that assumption, I can assume other things about the future, because I know what's going on right now so well that I can predict how this will go to that. And it's like, now I'm okay to say that I'm making a lot of assumptions, and I'm okay saying that's all I ever will do. That's all I ever will do is guess and make assumptions, because I will never know. And I don't need to know, because that desire to know really stemmed from a desire to control, which stemmed from a fear of not knowing. And at this point in my perspective and in my opinion, I don't imagine that control will feel as good as I thought it once would. Because there's an old assumption that I had, that if I knew everything, I'd be happy. So there's always been this goal to learn more, to gather more information, because I assumed that the more I knew, the better I would feel. Not realizing that the more I learned, the more I got scared of. And yet I never changed my plan. I never changed the plan. It was like, no, no, no. It must be that we just don't have enough information. That's what it really is. It's not that the plan is bad. It's not that knowing more is the wrong thing. It's that we just don't know enough. That's what it really is, you know? So we just have to keep collecting information. Eventually, once we know enough, we'll feel better, because we will know. And that's an assumption. I just don't know, and I just don't need to know, because I trust that what I do know is that I'm here. What I do know is that any option that is here is available. And I can't make a plan with an option that's not here. So for example, let's say I didn't have a driver's license. I do, but in this example, we're going to say that I don't have a driver's license, and I would love to be able to drive myself around, because I think that driving will make me more efficient. And, but I can't take my driver's test in my apartment. That option is not available right now. So although I have a goal of getting a license to be more efficient in my apartment, that is not available. So what could I do in my apartment? What I could do that is available right now is I could learn the rules of the road. So instead of worrying like, oh, I just need to find a way to bring the test to me, or I have to go take the test now and the DMV is closed. It's like, no, none of that's available right now. What is available right now? Because anything that I can do is here. So what can I do? I don't really need to focus on what this available choice is going to lead to next, or how that's going to get me closer to the goal in the long term. It's like, as much as I can think or imagine or fear, let me at least take advantage of what's available, because with what's available, I can do something. And that's what I think we're trying to do in this moment, is we're trying to do something. It's just that I attach the doing something to getting something later. And I just don't need to do that anymore. I can just do something now, and that's enough.
It's only ever right now. It's crazy, because it's the most obvious thing in the world. Like, oh my God. It's literally right in front of us. But it's so hard to grasp. It's so hard to grasp. We hide. We hide and we run away. Like, thought is literally escapism. It's literally just being like, okay, well, I'm here, and then you come up with all these ideas about your immediate environment so that you have some sort of orientation. But then that all just builds upon itself, and then narratives get interwoven, and you think just as a means of avoidance. And that's a pattern I've totally been stuck in, is like just thinking about things rather than taking action in the moment, because you can control, I don't know, control only exists in theory. It doesn't exist in practice. Um, but like, it's safer to not do the thing that I'm thinking about and then just think about all the potential ways that I could do that, and that's shaped by the ways that I want to be perceived, the way that I've seen other people do things, because I feel like I need to rely on past evidence, or I need to make sure that any decision I make or anything I create is like within the parameters of what would be acceptable and well liked by society at large. But none of that is real. None of that exists, and none of it has the potential of helping anyone or touching anybody's life, because it's perfect is cold and dead and empty, and so is control. Like, uncertainty is where all of the interesting bits of life come in, all of the surprises, you know, and memories, and all of the incredible lessons and insights that we get are from uncertainty. And even the twists and turns of like investing in false certainty and then getting smacked to the ground, and then finally hitting solid earth, looking around you and being like, okay, I'm not going to get up on that stool again. I like the stool analogy of like standing on a belief, or like standing on a thought, because it makes you feel better because you're like taller up. You're I don't know. And then but it's wobbly, and it's always going to be wobbly because you, like you said, Amanda, like you can't control for every consideration. There's like a billion possible things that could be true, and if you're like stopping and settling on something and you're standing on top of it, like you're making yourself vulnerable to being humbled. And it's okay to be humbled. That's all good. It's just part of the journey, you know, but like we just overcomplicate just being where we are and doing whatever we feel like doing. We make it into this whole narrative and story about us, and create all these concerns about whether or not we're doing the right thing, or if we're being perceived in the way that we want to be perceived. But all of that is nothing. It's just taking away from our ability to actually do something with our lives.
Right? The paranoia surrounding doing the wrong thing paralyzes you so that you do nothing. And somehow, in my mind, I think that doing nothing is better than doing the wrong thing. Because I know that I'm paralyzed. Like on some level, I know that I'm paralyzing myself, that I am not making a choice right now because I'm so scared of making the wrong choice, that I make no choice. And that is a choice. You know, not making a choice is an option. And so, you know, you ask someone for something, I don't know what it could be, and they say, I don't want to get involved. That's their choice of saying, my choice is not getting involved. It's not that they didn't get involved, it's that that was how they responded. And you had said earlier, it was like ignoring things, like when we ignore things, like we're not dealing with it. But I think that that is our response, though. And it's so funny, like when I think about what does it mean to deal with something, and it's like, I don't know, dealing with it makes it in my mind feel like it's an active activity. When I'm dealing with something, I'm actively engaging with something. I'm dealing with it, so I'm actively in it. But I'm not always active. And when I'm not active, that's how I'm dealing with it, is by not being active. So I don't know. It's like I'm like processing this in my head, like right now in real time, like not dealing with it is how I'm responding. You're always engaged technically. Like even when you're not when you're passive, but that's your response. That's how you're dealing with it, is ignoring it. And I used to always think of dealing with things as being active. I don't know.
Yeah, like there is no such thing as doing nothing. But when you were talking, it kind of hit me. I was like, do we even have like we it's like we're not even the agent in this situation. It's not like I'm choosing to do something versus not do something. It's like the flowers don't choose to bloom necessarily, right? It's like the way that I express isn't necessarily a choice all the time. It is, I guess, but I think the illusion of a me that's in control is an illusion. So, I don't know. Does that resonate at all? It's like I don't even have to. It's tough because I know I need to like take responsibility for it, but also like it's not up to me at the end of the day. There are certain things that I can do to influence outcomes in the moment, but at the end of the day, like you said, like even if I do nothing, that's a response. I'm in It's not me responding to the environment, it's the environment responding to itself.
Yeah, maybe it's like and it does resonate. Maybe, right, like us not dealing with something, us not actively is and maybe the environment is just reflecting our response. I don't know if that even I love that we are like actively churning on something right now. Like we are, yeah, like it's let's bring this to real world application for our imagination. Um uh I was thinking the other day about something like this, and it was like when people say that we need hope, and I'm like, do we though? Or is it just that hope is a poor substitute for the word imagination? Because anytime that somebody says, I hope things get better, it's like, yeah, but where's that coming from? That's coming from a place in your imagination that you're creating that's quote unquote better. It's not that you're hoping for better, you're imagining better. It's not that you hope this stops, it's that you imagine it stops. And so when I think about like hope, I think it's really just trying another way to say that we're imagining something that we're scared of, or we're imagining something to run from, or imagining a situation that is quote unquote better. And our environment reflects our imagination and our responses. So if I am feeling particularly cranky one day or particularly withdrawn and I go to the supermarket, it's not that all of a sudden everyone else is on edge, or other people are being short with me. Is that I feel like I'm the one that's being short. I feel like I'm the one who doesn't have a long fuse, who doesn't have as much patience. And my environment is reflecting my response to me and the environment. And so when you're not actively engaged, your environment reflects that. Take a friend, like you're friends with somebody and you don't call them all the time. It's not that the friendship is on its way out, is that the friendship is reflecting your response to being in that friendship. And so you're not calling, they're not calling. Is it that the friendship is doomed to fail? No, it's that it's reflecting where the current imagination is. How are the two of you imagining this friendship? And And based on how you imagine it, it's how you respond. You respond almost based on your imagination. So if anything, we respond, our environment reflects our imagination more than anything else. Hopefully that made sense, sis. barely, I'm barely holding on to it, but oh my God, I love what Roy's saying. Sometimes it seems that all the thoughts that come up with are just an avoidance of the feeling or the situation you're already in. I don't know. What do you think, Jackie?
The fact that I had to move to a third location is crazy. The leaf blower followed me.
She shall not be stopped, I tell you.
But yeah, like that was really resonating before I had to move. Yeah, because it's not that we don't have any say or input or control or influence at all. But we also don't at the same time, like we can't say with certainty that the things that we think we're controlling. But it seems to like play out in that way. Like we make decisions, we choose. It's like a choose your own adventure game. Like you didn't program the game. You're just the one that's like choosing between the two options in front of you in a given moment, or not even the two options, are just like what's available in your environment. You choose, but the game has like preset what's going to happen next, sort of. And not in like a predeterminism way, but like as in like it's out of your control. Like the vast majority, I feel, isn't in our control. I would say it's like 95 and 5%. Maybe. I don't know. It's hard to say the proportion of influence I have over the environment versus the environment's impact on me. Maybe it's 50-50. I wouldn't be able to tell. So that makes me more inclined to say that it's lower. Because at the end of the day, I don't know if I'm actually in control of myself. I might just be playing out the way I'm playing out. And I don't know. I also don't think there's really a benefit to, well, maybe there is a benefit of like thinking it's all in your control, because I feel like there's a level of empathy, but that also comes from realizing that you're not what you think you are and that you're everything, and then you just genuinely have empathy rather than feeling like you need to choose empathetically, if that makes sense. So yeah, it's interesting. Like there is a little bit of nugget of influence, but in my opinion, it doesn't feel like much.
It's true, because it takes more than just your influence, right? Because there's more than just your influence in the environment. Let's say you are you're at a dance and nobody's dancing on the dance floor. You can influence the party by being the first one to either invite someone onto the dance floor with you or to go out there by yourself, right? But that doesn't guarantee that after you go on that dance floor that the room's gonna erupt into this like rocking party, and all of a sudden everybody's gonna be like, "Hey, Macarena, you know, like it's not gonna, there's no guarantee that you're gonna set off a dancing terrain and people are gonna like just a little shimmy, a little razzle dazzle, you know, like it's just, there's no guarantee, but you still have the influence of being your own dance party, of going out onto that dance floor, despite the fact that you imagine that you will be judged and cheered on. Because they're all just things that you imagine. All of your fears, all of your insecurities, all of these stories, they're all just coming from your imagination. And I really like phrasing it in that way because it frames it in a way where I can't avoid the fact that it's coming from me. Like all my fears, I imagine them. All my insecurities, I imagine them. All of my accomplishments, all of my feats of success, all of those things I imagine. So when I tell myself I've got this, that's coming from this imagination of Amanda, the character, busting through that wall and kicking some ass. That's still coming from my imagination just as much as me thinking how unprepared I was, how much I am, how much I stumble over words, how nervous I get, how anxious I get, like all that stemming from my imagination. and it kind of takes away a little bit of like the size of that monster in a way, because I'm like, oh well, I made it. And I'm like, you sit the fuck down, you grunchy pants, you grouch. I made you. I am Dr. Frankenstein. You sit down. You're my monster. You are my monster. So I can imagine you as big or as small as I want, but I still am the source of it, and I don't need to not make monsters anymore. It's just that, just remember that you have the capacity to make something seem doable, or you make something seem impossible. Or I guess that's what, yeah, you make something seem possible in your imagination just as much as you make something seem impossible. But it's so easy to get caught up in it because I get constant reminders about how I'm not in control, how I am helpless, and I don't have control, but I have influence, at least over what I am focusing my attention on. So am I focusing my attention on my opinion, or am I focusing my attention on this moment and what's available within this moment? Because paying attention will never be a bad thing. In fact, that is probably across the board the best thing I could do in any situation, in any place, in any country, with any language that's being spoken around me. This is why I say to people, you could put me anywhere. And I mean anywhere. You could put me anywhere, and I trust that either we're going to figure it out or we're going to get ourselves killed in like the first hour. But we're going to pay attention. And regardless of where I'm at, the thing I can always do, regardless of the environment, regardless of the time of day, regardless of my mood, is I can always pay attention.
Absolutely. That, I think, is the thing we have control over, our attention, where our attention goes. Yeah, because if I like the way you were using imagination there too, because that's what the whole experience of thought and emotions and thinking about hypothetical situations and fears and hopes, it's all going on in La La Land, like in imagination land. And I like thinking about it as imagination rather than like thought, because thought, I don't know, because there's like overthinking and like, I just, a lot of the times thoughts get like a bad rap, or like they're like vilified, and I do that. I'm like, God, I can't stop fucking thinking. I want to stop fucking thinking. Earlier in this episode when I was like, I want to turn it off. I have the choice to turn it off, I guess. I have the choice to not listen to it. I have the choice to put my thoughts in timeout. And yeah, always just come back to the present moment, arrive where I am. And I think if there's any sort of meaningful goal or like any reliable way to improve your existence with reality, is to spend more time in reality, paying attention, and like sensing all parts of you and of the environment and responding accordingly. Just like finding the ways that you can balance out certain energies, or and not even in like a control way, but just giving yourself grace, giving other people grace, but also being alert and knowing that if you have to act, you have to act. Sometimes you do. But it's about just being sensitive to what the moment calls for. And it's each and every moment is going to be different. Like you can't say that one situation you're going to have to respond in this way. And often I think ideas of how we should be responding get in the way of like what could have happened if we were just there and responding to the moment while it was happening in real time, rather than to, like I said before, like working from the outside in, like just living in the present and just being here and expressing whatever you're expressing with, just doing the best that you can at this point. is always the best that you can do. Like there's no point in stressing and thinking about anything beyond that, because you're at your highest capacity when you're just fully present and allowing yourself to respond naturally. Anywho, yeah, we're at the hour mark here. This was a great conversation. I feel like there were lots of twists and turns.
Yeah.
We were really chewing on some things in this one, which I loved. There were points where I was talking and I completely forgot what I was saying, and I was like, but then I found my way again and somehow tied it all up. So this has been a great time. We're gonna be on the episode of Do You Social at what time, Amanda? Is that 3?
That is 2.5 hour, the DU social, with all 4 of us, Andrew, Ray, Jackie, and Amanda. It's going to be a blast. So yeah, in 30 minutes, we will be reconnecting again. And then at 6 p.m., 3 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, we'll be doing the Dualistic Unity Roundtable. So make sure you register for that. All details on Patreon or dualisticunity.com. And then one last thing was just mentioning that there is a coupon code, save $150 on Virginia Beach or the California retreat. Coupon code is DU in person, all caps, and valid until November 11th. And you can combine that with your Patreon discount. So save a little money. Come hang out with some cool people. And if not, no worries. Just the conversation is where it's at. So hopefully you can tune in a half an hour, and we look forward to more DU Real and more episodes coming. Jackie, a pleasure as always. Thank you for digging through some shit and holding some shit in at the same time. I like all this shit multitasking. And I look forward to digging through some shit again with you, for sure.
Yeah, ready to get all up in that shit in 30 minutes. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time.